Hello, everyone. So I am Kelly Hogue. I am an alignment coach and the founder of Root to Rise. And under Root to Rise is Morning Magic Collective. And we have all sorts of fun events all the time, weekly, more than weekly. We have this, we have one on Friday. Some people here are members, some people are not. All of our events, for the most part, are open to the public, this being one of them. But I do ask our members all the time, what do you guys want to see? Who do you want to learn from? What do you want to learn? What do you want to do? And Diana actually said, hey, I want a numerology event. And I was like, yeah, me too, because I don't know anything about numerology. So I put it out into the world, and we have beautiful Becca here with us today to share her numerical.
I know it's hard. I think numerological is
Numerological.
the word we're looking for. I can't say it half the time either.
Great. So she's here with us tonight. I'm really excited to learn from her along with you guys. Like I said, I don't know much. Maybe you guys know more than me. Maybe you know less than me, if that's even possible. But I'm excited to learn more. So continue to introduce yourselves in the chat and connect, and I'm going to let Becca take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. Kelly, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I love a room full of number nerds, and that's who we're all going to be after this hour together. I do have some slides, and I will make this available through Kelly so that everyone can get a copy of these slides. Things are falling off my desk. So that you don't have to be furiously taking notes or anything. And of course, you'll have the recording. So just let me know if you can see this behind me, if this is the correct orientation for everyone. Okay, cool. So we're just going to go through a little numerology 101 today. But before we get started, since I am new here and I'm meeting everyone for the first time, I just figured we'll start right off the bat with this lovely photo of me. My name is Rebecca. I also go by Becca. Sometimes I go by B. If you listen to, I host a podcast where I go by B. My pronouns are she, her. I'll answer to anything at this point. I am calling in from Lenape land, which is colonially known as New York City. I identify as a queer human lady and emotional witch. So if anyone should be feeling Cancer season, which my birthday is next week, so I know I am, tears are welcome in this space. I don't know what will make you cry, but it could happen and you're safe here. I do consider myself to be a multimedia artist. I'm a writer, or a tarot reader, a math magician. Like I said, I host a podcast bi-weekly, and I am a forever student. So one of my teachers, Amy Koretsky, says that we are co-teachers and co-learners, and that's something that I really want to bring to this space always. So I am the one talking to you, hopefully not at you tonight. This will be a little bit of a conversation, but I am always learning. And so everything that I'm presenting to you tonight is just my understanding as it stands today, subject to change tomorrow. And I'm always open to, of course, learning from the room as well. And before we dive in, I just kind of want to settle everyone's nerves, if you have them, around math. You do not need to be good at math to understand numerology. I had to go to Sylvan Learning Center to pass Algebra 2 in high school. I already told you I'm very emotional. So during a big breakdown to my mother, I screamed, unless I'm doing Math the musical, I will not need to know this information. That life path did not work out, although still could. Long life ahead of me, hopefully. But the universe is always trolling us. It's a cosmic joke. I do math every day now for work. So if I can do it, you can do it. All right, so let's dig in. We'll start with the what. So what is numerology? For me, numerology is a bit of a two-part process. So first and foremost, yes, thank God for calculators. I use them every day. So first and foremost, numerology is the study of the cosmic language of numbers. So it is a divine code, so to speak. These are energies that we can know and experience. Experience is key, as well as we're on this journey together. And we'll go into the number of the collective year that we're going through. And I'm sure all of you will be able to add your own anecdotes onto the experience. So we first get to know and study this cosmic language. And then after we study it, we can take those learnings and we can actually apply them intuitively. We can apply those divine principles to people, places, and events. So for me, I really do see numbers as a tool that can help us to gain awareness of these many cycles that we are experiencing, as well as patterns that we might be playing out at any given moment. And then we can use this information both personally and collectively to kind of tap into what is present. And numerology does run cyclically, so we'll focus on the numbers 1 through 9 tonight, and then I'll throw a few master numbers at you, numbers that are outside of the line, with some good juicy information. So where does this all come from? And then I will be reading the chat periodically, so if you have questions, throw them in there, and I promise we'll get back to them at some point. So just as we have this astrological natal chart, which some of you might be familiar with yours, we also have our own set of personal numbers, so we can actually come up with our numerology chart. And this can help us to guide our life, can act as a guide on our path. It can provide insights into our overall journey, what we're here to do. Like I said before, our patterns, our strengths, and of course, our invitations into growth, which is why we are all here, I would assume. And I really do think that number energies are magic. And so therefore, they cannot be truly like pinned down or known. So for our purposes, we're going to look at numbers as mirrors for ourselves and others, as poetic archetypes that we can feel into, and then of course as unwavering truths, because this is and we'll get into this in a second, this is an ancient practice that has been around for thousands of years and used by more people, more scientists and mathematicians than Western school would ever teach you. So we do have some universal knowledge in here as well. So like I said, this is an ancient philosophy. It does have roots in both the Western and Eastern worlds. So the earliest mathematical and therefore numerological, there's that word again, writings stem from Babylon and Egypt in the West, and then India, Japan, and China in the East. And when numerology was really coming to be, there was no separation between the practical and the mystical like we have now. You know, we really like to do away with the mystical aspects of things, but really there was no separation at the time. So this information was used by many, if not all of the ancient thinkers. And it's both a calculated practice and an art. So if you're out there on Google after this, if this hopefully inspires you to want to dig a little deeper, just be aware that you might find varying information out there. Babylonian numerology is colloquially known as Chaldean numerology. That's pretty well known. There's Chinese. I will introduce my lineage in a second, but just saying that I'll show you some calculations as I know them. But if you find other information out there, it's not because I didn't tell you the correct thing. It's because there are many ways to get to this core information, which can also be fun. I like to pick and choose a little bit of everything. So my lineage comes from this dude right up here. This is Daddy Digits. This is Pythagoras. And some people, most of us probably know him from math class. Pythagorean theorem is taught. And he is one of those who was not interested at all in using mathematics for anything other than spiritual purposes. So I think he would probably roll over. Yes, Daddy Digits, I'm trademarking that one. He would probably roll over in his grave at this point to see how people are teaching his theorems. But he was a leading thinker at his time and really believed that all things were numbers. And he actually went to school in Egypt at Egyptian mystery schools. Kemet is the ancient word for Egypt. And he studied at these temple schools. And at the time, all of the Greeks went to these Egyptian schools. And temple degrees took 40 years to complete, and none of them completed their degrees. So we now have all of these Western fathers of science and politics and philosophy, and they are all college dropouts. So may we all have their confidence as we move forward with our own work. Pythagoras actually stayed kind of the longest. Yeah, the curriculum for the mystery school, there is some information out there. This is all very secretive at the time. And so a lot of this information has been carried on by like the Order of the Golden Dawn and a lot of more esoteric mystery organizations throughout the years. So part of what I really love about this is I just want to rip that Band-Aid off. Let's give this knowledge to everyone. Let's all have it. We don't need to be playing those games anymore. But the curriculum is pretty Hogwarts in and of itself. So Pythagoras stayed the longest at this mystery school. He stayed 22 years, which is a master number. So I kind of love that about his schooling. But then he did return to Greece, and he began linking numbers to the alphabet, to music, to the planets, to astrology, and then ultimately to that which he called God or source or the universe. You can put whatever word you love to use in there. And so there's an alphabet that you can find, and I can even share it with you. You can find the numerology of any name, any address, any phone number. You can chart your friends, your families. This information really is amazing. And why should we be using it now? I always want to pull my spiritual or mystical practices into the present. So first and foremost, I think numerology is a personal practice. So even though we're dealing with numbers, which can feel very separate from us, like Pythagoras said, all things are numbers, we are numbers, and yet these symbols must mean something to us to be useful. So hopefully tonight you'll find at least like one buzzword per number that you can just jot down, so that you can start to get to know the journey of the numbers and their energies. And then hopefully they can help you to not only know yourself a little bit better, but to orient yourself kind of in time and space. And it's really important to me, again, that my spiritual practice really connects me to the here and now. I don't think spiritual bypassing is very cute. So all of this information is shared, again, to the best of my knowledge at the moment, but I do believe in using magic responsibly and consciously, and that free will is our gift to use how we please. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Feel free to come off. We're going to get into your numbers in just a second, but feel free to come off mute or throw them in the chat. I'm throwing a lot at you.
I do have a question. How did you get started? Like, you were like, ooh, Pythagoras, he's so sexy. Let me go follow him now. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so hot. Yeah. So I first had my numerology chart done when I was a teenager. My mom is a psychic and very into alternative like modes of divination. And so I got my numerology chart done when I was really young. And there was just something about it that I really liked. And I felt like it wasn't something that people were really talking about. So I wanted to learn more. And Pythagoras, for me, felt like the correct lineage and staying the most aligned with my own lineage as possible, and kind of staying as far out of the appropriative space as possible, even though all of this information does really come from one place and comes from Egypt. So it really was just, I was curious. And so with Pythagoras, especially, once I learned that he wasn't interested in using numbers for math, I was kind of like, okay, then what do you want to use numbers for? And he really kind of was like a cult leader of his day. He had a community. They were called the Pythagoreans. They all left Greece and they lived in southern Italy and lived in community with one another. And it was kind of ascetic. So they were pretty strict. They had schedules. They woke up in the morning. They exercised, they ate, they studied together. He was pretty radical at the time. He let ladies be involved and even teach. What? Aghast. So what really connected me kind of to the Pythagorean lineage was just how much was left out of modern teachings about him and his life. And he and his people were ultimately killed by supporters of democracy because they saw him as being a king-like leader and not playing the game of the democratic republic that was coming up in Athens and the city-state at the time. So it was just really interesting to me. That's kind of how I got started, was having my chart done and then just wanting to fill in the gaps. Yeah. All right. Any last minute before we talk about you? All right, cool. So tonight, because I do want to get through these numbers and I want to leave you all with at least 3 to look at, we're going to talk about your holy trinity of numerology, your top 3 numbers, the top 3 numbers that I look at when I'm looking at anyone's chart right away. And these numbers all come from your birth date. So hopefully you know that. And they're really easy calculations. So the first number that we're going to talk about tonight is called your life path number. Other numerologists might use destiny or karmic path. Again, like I mentioned before, there is some varying language. So I'm just very upfront. This is what I personally call them. Hopefully after tonight, you will, if you're interested, choose to continue your studies with me. But if you don't, totally fine. Just be aware that some of these names might change as you're on the interwebs. So this life path number is the most zoomed out that you can get about your own life in numerology. And it really looks at the long game. So the journey of your life, the overall energy, maybe your archetype or the archetype of the path that you're walking. And this is found by adding your entire birthday, so month, day, and year of your birth until you get a single digit. So my birthday is July 7th. I've used myself as an example here. So I would add 7/7 to 1992. I would get 35, and I would keep adding until I get that single digit. So that's, if I can impart anything.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If you're like November, do you add 11 or do you add 1 + 1?
So I add 1 + 1. I do all the numbers separate. However, if you are really looking, totally still good to use a calculator. I use a calculator on myself still every day. Yes. So looking at this double digit here, like I have 35 to get to 8. Sometimes numerologists will look at that number. And so depending on how you add, it'll change that number. But if you're just getting to the root, which is what we care about today, you can add any way that you want, as long as you just keep going. And if anyone wants me, again, I'm going to use a calculator, but if anyone wants me to check their math, you can throw your birthday in the chat and I'll do the calculation for you. So this is your life path number. And like I said, it's the most zoomed out that you're going to get. It's like the main, this would be most similar to like your sun sign in astrology. All right, Diana. Yes, ones. Jackie, ones have been flocking to me lately. All these trailblazers are like ready to learn. I love this. Okay, this says 6. Okay, so Diana, I hope you got 5. I hope you got 32/5, because that's what I'm getting for you. Okay, cool. So Emily, great question. So if you get to an 11 or any of its multiples, 11, 22, 33, 44, more than that, it's probably not going to happen in a birthday, but could. Let's actually keep that. So keep that. That's a master number. You'll want to know more information when we get into those. You can also gain a lot of insights from looking at the root, which the root of 11 would be 2. So we can talk about how those 2 energies play together once we get to 11. Cool. Okay. I see a few more birthdays that I will just do really quickly. All right. All right. Alea, I got 7 for you. How does that feel? Yeah? Okay, cool. And, oh, Emily, I already did yours, right? Did I do someone else? Okay.
No.
Oh, no, I didn't do yours. Okay, great.
Did you get 11 though? Just making sure I added that correctly.
See. Yeah, 38 into 11. So I'll keep it. Yeah. So listen out for 2 and then also listen for 11 and then you can feel into that. Okay, cool. Oh, we have a good variety. We got some 1s, we got some 7s and some 5s. Not seeing any 8s. That's me. We would be life path twins. Lots of 5s. Okay, cool. I'm excited to see what y'all think about these archetypes. So that's life path number. So that's the first and foremost, the number that I look at. So I'm going to skip to yearly cycle. It's the last one. This is if we're going from life path most zoomed out, then yearly cycle is going to go the most zoomed in. You can calculate days, you can calculate months or weeks. So, oh my gosh, so many 11s in here. Look at a room full of master numbers. I love it. So you can calculate smaller than this, but in terms of my practice, I like to look at the year. So if life path is zoomed out, then yearly cycle is zoomed in. This is your current invitation. Like I said, our building blocks, our spiral that we're looking at is 1 through 9. And if you keep doing the math, which is to add your month and day of your birth to the current year. So I would add 7/7 to 2021, which would take me a long time to get to the root number, but it is 1. I'm in the first year of this new cycle. If you do the math, you can actually calculate your yearly cycle for any year that you've been alive. It's pretty fun to do that. And you'll see that it goes from 1 to 9, and then it starts over at 1. So you can start to look at some of these larger chapters of your life, these 9-year cycles, to see what narratives, what stories, what themes were playing themselves out. And like I said, once you get to know the pattern or the evolution of the number line of the spiral, then you can start to see how maybe in hindsight, your life has been following this cyclical pattern. It is pretty trippy. So year 6, yes, year 6. Well, then it should be a good year because last year might've been a bit of a doozy for you in the 5. Yeah. So I hope you're taking deep breaths. I hope you're taking a lot of bubble baths or whatever self-care works for you. Jackie, my condolences, heavy 5 energy this year. 2021 is also a collective 5 year. So fun and freedom, but unexpected change, riding those waves. Okay, cool, lots of 9s. So last year of the cycle, really wrapping things up. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, yes, birthday twins. So then you also, if you have the same birthday, then you share this middle number, which we haven't chatted about. So this public persona number. So the public persona, I think, is the most performative self that we have. It's how we show up in public, our social selves, and it's found by adding the month and the day of our birth. So like Emily and Diana, they have the same public persona. They could show up in space with similar themes, similar attributes, similar vibes, what have you. And this can express itself in many ways. Actually, my wife and I have the same birthday, so we have the same public persona number. And sometimes we're really similar, and sometimes we're like opposite ends of that spectrum. Especially my public persona is a 5, which I already kind of spoiled to all of you. It's like radical change, fun and freedom, adventure. So sometimes she's like really gung-ho and I'm like, I don't think we should do this. We should just tap out, even though we're kind of expressing the same things. So this is similar to your rising sign. Great, then your public persona would be 1. We would just chop that 0 off and we'll look at 1. So we love a trailblazer. We love a spitfire in a public space, an initiator. So the way that I like to look at these 3, how they work together, is the life path is like the video game that you're playing, whatever the simulation thing that we're all doing here is. This is the game. The yearly cycle is your current level. So wherever you are, what you're going through. And then your public persona is your avatar. How do you show up? What kind of tools are in your bag? What's the energy that you bring to a space? Maybe what are you wearing? Oh, both 4s. I love that. I'm so tender for 4s. Cool. I'm glad that works. I've been testing that out. It's working for me all right at the moment to kind of bring some levity to it as well, to say that this information is all magical, but we're not tied to any of this, right? We can use it. And before we dig into the numbers, I just want to say that all of these numbers, I really am moving away from binaries, moving away from poles, even like looking at polar things, into more of a holistic view of these numbers. So we will kind of go into what you could say are 2 sides of the coin, but just know that these number energies really do have like the whole of expression. So we can feel into that as we go. How's everyone doing with their numbers? Do we have any questions before we dig in? All of you are doing great with the math. So good, so good. Okay, cool. Let's get to know these numbers. So I know that we have Jackie is a 1 life path, and Alea, you're a 1 public persona, and I'm in a 1 year. So we've checked all the boxes. Let's see what's going on for us. So 1 is the archetype of the trailblazer. Yes, Ellie's also a 1. Okay, cool. So again, these are all my titles for the archetypes. You might find slightly different versions out there, but a lot of numerologists do use archetypes still. So this is the trailblazer, and the quote that I use is "as above, so below." And some key components and concepts for the 1 is that first and foremost, it's the beginning, right? It's the start, it's the spark, it's that first step on the journey, and it is the self. So there is a little bit of a paradox within the number 1, because 1 is the individual, but also the all. And so right in here, we have right off the bat, we know that even though it is the only number that truly stands, quote unquote, alone, we know if you're a tarot practitioner or familiar, like the magician always is channeling from source, from that which lies outside of ourselves. So we have this inherent duality even within the number 1. But it really is the number of independence, of pioneering. It's Fleetwood Mac's go your own way. It's doing things without a map, without a model. These are our initiators. They're here to like really start some shit. And because of that, they do work best. So trailblazers in the room, you might find that you work best being more of an intuitive closed loop system. You don't really need a lot of outsider information. It's really about turning internal, making sure that you're checking in with self, keeping aligned with whatever you feel is your highest and best. And you might be a great leader, might not be such a great teammate. So might something to look out for. But we really have some cool examples of trailblazers in the collective consciousness. Martin Luther King Jr. was a trailblazer. So was George Washington, first president. And the interesting one that I use for trailblazers, because I get a lot of people that are like, I'm not really interested in being a leader. I don't want to be the face of anything. This might be more of the shadow side of the trailblazer, but Dick Cheney was a 1 life path, is a 1 life path. And I bring him up because I think that even though he was the vice president under Bush, I think he was pulling a lot of political strings, even though he was not the face of it. He was the political influence and the power. So just something interesting to think about with the number 1. Is it true, regardless of this is your life path? Yes. Yeah. So this is what I'm giving you now is the information about the numbers, and you can start to add this to anything. So if you find that your phone number is a 1, you're like, oh, my phone number has a lot of initiating energy, whatever that means to you, you know. So this is more general information, and then you can start to add it through the lens of like, oh, if I'm on the life path of a trailblazer, then I'm probably going to be starting a lot of things. I'm probably going to be, you know, more of an initiator in my life. I also might have to go at it without a map. I might have to just trust my instincts and take, you know, do the next right thing and go from there. If I'm a public persona 1, I won't do this for every number, but you can fill in the blanks. If I'm a public persona 1, I might know that I'm there to kind of be the idea person. Like I show up in space and I trust my instincts and I say what I think we should do, you know, drop little hints, or maybe I'm always kind of constantly channeling and pulling ideas and inspirations out. And maybe I'm not the person that actually finishes the task, but I can start it. I can get that idea out. And then like for me, if I'm in a 1 year, I'm starting a lot of new things. New seeds are being planted this year. This is the start of the cycle, which is also good for me to remind myself when I want to skip ahead and get ahead of myself. You know, I'm right on time. I'm at the beginning. So we have to know where we are in the cycle too. Any questions about the 1, just generally speaking? All right, cool. Let's meet 2. So 2 is the archetype of the peacemaker. I use a Jay-Z lyric here. Give me that funk, that sweet, that nasty, that gushy stuff. Because if 1 is the self, then 2 is the other. So here we had the beginning, now we have the next. 2 is the number of love and relationships. It's the number of connection, of kindness, of compassion, of diplomacy. It's really all about collaboration, right? At its like highest vibe. 2 is like, how can we work together? other to make sure that we're not only achieving whatever it is that we want, but we're both taken care of. We both love being here. How can we be in harmonious relationship with one another? And 2 is all of these numbers also have body correlations. So 1 is the feet, 2 is the heart and the hands. And my tarot teacher, Lindsay Mack, always says that the hands are an extension of the heart. So we can think about 2 being a number that lives in the chest, that lives in the body. And so when we're talking about 2, we're talking about big feelings, right? This is our first emotional number. And I really see 2 as being like the great connector, the peacemaker, the great diplomat. So currently in our political sphere, Joe Biden is a peacemaker, life path, which is interesting, especially with all of the moves that he's making currently, that I'll keep my opinions to myself, but but he was really here to smooth some things out. Julie Andrews is a peacemaker. And yeah, 2 is a really lovely number of connection. Do we have any 2s in anyone's top 3? All right, that's okay. They're amongst us. Me neither. But 2 is really about the next. So 1 is the self and 2 is the other. 1 is the start, 2 is the next, and we're on the journey. So then if we have the self and we have the other, we're going to have to learn to talk about it. So 3 is the archetype of the communicator. And I use a Jedediah Jenkins quote here that says, words are maps to human experience. So 3 is a very cool number. Oh, Allison, I love a yearly cycle 3. So 3 is all about communication, expression, and creativity. So 3 in a yearly cycle, throw everything, all the spaghetti at the wall. It doesn't even have to stick. You'll build structure around it next year in the 4. This is really about like getting things out of you. What is the purest, creative, expressive form of anything? Like, I think 3s are like years of yeses, just do it. Say yes and see what happens. I love that. Sounds very spot on, Allison. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's all about communication, expression. 3 is the number of magic. When we talk about writing, there is a magic rule that says that things are inherently more satisfying if they come in groups of 3. So a lot of comedians will use sets of 3 to like set up their punchline, and then the last one really hits you. That's why we have so many trinities around us, God, Holy Spirit. I've been out of religion too long to use that one. Let's go Harry, Ron, and Hermione, 3 little pigs, right? We have all these trinities. We also have the hero's journey, which if you are a fan of Joseph Campbell and the power of myth, yes, me too. We have the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is oh my gosh, yes, we have a prop. It is right there. I love this. So then you will know that the hero's journey is a way of breaking down mythological journeys into 12 steps, and 12, 1 + 2 is 3. So what we get here in 3 is that 3 is the smallest number that actually, like Jedediah Jenkins would say, the full human experience. It is the smallest number that encompasses the journey. You can even see it in the shape of the 3, right? We have the beginning, the middle, and the end, like in that shape of the 3. And so really, just like this mythic hero's journey that we do just love culturally, we just love to see it in all of our stories. There's something about this that really does express what is universal. It's that feeling that you get when someone tells a story that's so specific to them, but it just really hits home and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me too. That's the vibe of 3. So it's really like, how are we communicating with one another? How are we expressing ourselves? Lots of artists, lots of writers have 3 life paths. Jane Austen, Anne Frank, Charles Dickens, all 3 life paths. And they can really express what is universal. So any other 3s in here besides Allison's yearly cycle? All right, cool. Well, you'll get to know it. That's what I love about these numbers. You'll get to know them all as you just cycle through them, even if they're not in your top 3. So I kind of already gave it away when I said to Allison, just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks this year, because next year you'll build some structure around it. So once we move into 4, we're a little bit more grounded. 4 is the archetype of the salt of the earth. And I use this because it's very grounded, very simple. And I say that with total love, like simple energy. It just feels accessible to me. It's very sturdy. And I use the quote, "The devil's in the details," because 4, if you even look at this chair behind me, it's like, you can think the 4 legs of a table or a chair. It's very stable. It's very sturdy. It's structure. So 4 is our systems, our structures, our traditions and our beliefs, right? Our foundations. 4th house astrology, we get to those roots, our home. This is really about building, and the archetype of the salt of the earth, there are natural born builders, and they aren't afraid to get their hands dirty in it. Yes, yeah, so I know we have a double 4 in here. So that's really interesting. Yes, totally. So very natural born builders, right? And a high vibe of 4 is really cool, and I think pretty radical, especially in the culture that we live in. 4 at its highest vibe says that there is enough of everything for everyone. Stability, enoughness, right? Abundance. And so if that statement doesn't ring true for you, it means that someone's holding on to something instead of sharing the wealth. So we can think about, like, there is enough money for everyone in this country. It's just being held onto by a few white men at the moment. But they're really high vibe 4 says there is enough of everything for everyone. Oprah is a 4 life path. So I always think, you get a car, you get a car, everyone gets a car is like the highest vibe 4. On the other hand, right? 4 can be, it's a grounded energy. It's really looking at the details. It's looking at the systems and the structures. So it provides a very critical lens. And I think that having a critical lens is, pun intended, critical. And it also can lead into more stubbornness, more rigidity, not being very flexible, being very set in ways, not wanting to move, being fearful instead of held by the systems and the structures that you build. You feel very kind of trapped by them, or there can be a fearful energy. There can be like 4 of Pentacles really holding on. There's a deck called the Way Home Tarot that has a 4 of Pentacles card that's like a frog on lily pads. And I feel that frog. It's like, I will not let go. I live here now. You cannot take this. That can be very 4. So how does that resonate with my 4s in the room? Kind of. Well, I always am looking to add to this and to learn from people who, like I said, I don't have 4 in my chart. You know, we all have our own set of numbers, even though we get to know these. So I would love to know your experience of this as well. I think it's hard to know about your public persona. Yeah, the public persona one, because it is a performative sense of ourselves, you can think about, like, what do you offer to a space, or what's something that you have a knack for that you offer to a space. Like, I have a 5 public persona, and we'll get into that in a second. And I can give you some insights into how I think I show up in space. But for a 4, like, maybe you're just really, someone has a plan or needs a plan, and you're like, I can do that, and I can help, and I can build that for you. So sometimes it's more qualitative about, like, what you bring to a space. Oh, just chat. Okay, 22. Yeah, think about 22 too. We'll get to that in a second. Oh, I love that. Dependable abundance slingers. We need more. We need good, like, high vibe 4s in the world. I think some 4s I have not been that abundance slinger, and we need that. So in the 4 energy, and in the 4 year specifically, we build the boat. I will also mention that last year, 2020, was a collective 4 year. And I think if you want to feel into 4 energy, just think about the collective events of last year. First and foremost, we were all sent to our homes to think about our choices and what we were doing in the world. I've never had more friends move back in with their parents or their actual childhood bedrooms, which is so 4. And we really looked at the roots and the foundations of our culture, of our country, of like our health system and how that is functioning. I think 4 is a very revealing energy. So it reveals what is working and what is not working. And then we looked at our traditions and our beliefs and we said, what are our core values, both in and of ourselves and in our culture? And then we get to ask the questions like, do we want to stick with that? Yes or no? I think we all looked at traditions through a new lens last year, or at least I'll just speak for white people. We looked at traditions through a new lens last year and really looked at our place in all of these things. So again, can we build it back? Yes. Can we do it better? The 4 would say, yes, let's do that. Because then after we build our boat in the 4, we move into 5, which is heavy change energy. So we actually get to make changes. So 5 is the archetype of the change maker. And Kelly Clarkson tells us to make a wish, take a chance, make a change, and break away, obviously. Okay, life path 5. I know we have a couple in here, which is cool. I'm on I have a 5 public persona. So I bring a radical change to a space. I'm like, let's not be afraid to just do it differently. Maybe there's a different way. We don't have to keep going the same way. And let's have a little fun while we're doing it. Because 5 is really the messy middle, first and foremost. It's the middle of the road. It's that portal moment where it's like, do you want to continue or do you want to go back? Again, the choice is yours. But there is fun and freedom in this, right? There's total liberation. There's total adventure in this energy. It really is riding the waves, but also it's heavy change and contraction. I think of Octavia E. Butler said, change is God. It is the only constant. And I feel that with 5 energy. It's a physical number. It lives in the belly. So this is your butterflies and your anxiety. This is your nausea that comes with change, right? It's all about your relationship to change and to weathering storms and moving through contraction. But really, it's a physical experience. So we're in a 5 collective year right now. So if you're on a 5 life path, yeah, I see Jackie, this is my current year and everything. Yeah, the 5 really gets people. The 5, everyone's like, oh yeah, I can see that. And I would say that you're supported in making changes this year, that I think 5 energy actually asks you to go for it. My current experience of the 5 year personally is that I can't do anything just once. I have to if something goes wrong, either I make a mistake or something happens, I always end up doing it a second time. My first newsletter of the year, when I was trying to write about 5, I got all the way done. I spent hours on it and then it just erased itself somehow. And I just knew, I was like, this is 5 energy, like putting me through my paces for sure. So it is kind of it calls your bluff, right? It wants you to say yes and to it. So we are in a change maker year. So again, some of these key concepts are creativity, fun, freedom, but also challenge and sudden and unexpected change. I think we can lean on our 5th house, which is ruled by Leo in astrology, to add some more like creation, play, like pleasure and sensuality to the whole thing. Future children, right? Especially this year, what do we want to do? What changes do we want to make collectively for the future so that people, as I sweat in this heat wave, so that people can continue living on this planet? But I do think we need some of this levity to kind of help us through some of the more contracting moments of 5 energy, because it's tough. It's the messy middle. And this is the energy of the whole year. So on the one hand, we're halfway through. On the other hand, buckle up, babes, we're still going. And in the tarot, I love adding tarot to this. So this is the Hierophant. I think something that's being called into question this year, or just for all of us to look at, is who we are looking to as teachers, as leaders, and how can we actually pull back enough to have our own sovereignty, to start listening to ourselves a little bit more. I think we are moving away from having a more hierarchical way of living with one leader who calls the shots, to hopefully a more holistic, a more decentralized power, so to speak. So something just to keep in mind this year is like, who are you listening to? And and just make sure that you're checking in with yourself and you're like, yeah, that works for me. So I love to see that this is hitting for all the fives. So yes, it's the lifetime of change, but you're not alone. My favorite change makers, AOC is a change maker, Malcolm X is a change maker, Beyonce is a change maker. So no pressure. All right, so then in the 6, which Alea, you can let us know how you're breathing this year. But the 6 is the archetype of the nurturer. So this is where we do heal a little bit. We do lick our wounds, we do transition, but we also then have some additional work to do in the 6 because we're on the other side. So there's no turning back. We are showing up as our highest and best. So I love this quote from Denise Froman that says, the wound may not be your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So in the 6, we have expansion after contraction, right? We have blossoming, we have blooming, we have growing. These are your generous caretakers. These are the moms of the friend group, the people who are always like, oh, come in, let me bake you something. This is our lovers. But with that, right, if we're going to be in relationship with people, if we're going to be in family, whether that's blood or chosen family, we have to be responsible. We have to be accountable. So there's a lot that goes into the 6 experience as well as kind of making sure that you're showing up in right relationship with whatever it is that's growing, that's expanding for you. And there is a hint of nostalgia in the 6. You can think 6 of Cups, because this is a very sweet energy, but at the same time, we are past the point of no return. So sometimes we can long for what came before. So we just have to be careful not to romanticize that past too much in our 6 energy. Yes, I know. Okay, time has gone by so fast. We will keep moving, but you let me know in the chat if you have questions. So then once we've expanded and we're inviting in some new information, some new care for ourselves, I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions about how to proceed, which leads us to 7. So 7 is the archetype of the seeker, which asks, do you know the way to Santa Fe? And 7 is a very mental energy. It's all about questions and analysis. Yes, 7 is your public persona. Cool. I love a seeker. I have my birthday is 7/7, so I have heavy seeker energy here. This is the number of faith and mystery. So it is spirituality. It is secrets. 7 is a very highly regarded universal number. 7 days of the week, 7 traditional planets in astrology, 7 notes on the scale, +1 to make the octave, right? But so it's a lot. It's a very universal number, but it's also what's seen and what's unseen, or what's known and unknown. And it kind of has this push-pull from internal to external, because seekers are really wanting to understand. They want to know, they want to understand, they want to get it, right? So it's big quest energy, big adventure energy. And a lot of this, especially for spaces like this, takes us through evolution through spiritual knowledge. So wanting to understand through all of these different modalities, not too worried about what is culturally significant or apropos. It's really a personal journey. And something I will say, especially since Allison, you have a 7 public persona, is that seekers are going to seek, right? So we have this idea of seek and ye shall find, but sometimes with our seekers, all the energy lies in the quest. So once we get to the thing that we want, it might not be that satisfying to seekers, right? It might not be inherently satisfying to get it, because it was really fun to like figure it out. So there is, again, this balance that's needed for seekers to actually kind of relax and relish in the finding or the end of the journey without just launching themselves into the next quest. But also maybe you just share the answers with someone and then you move on and oh, hello. And that can be where your joy lies. So then once we start questioning, then we hopefully will have some action behind us. And that brings us to 8. So 8 is the powerhouse. And I love this quote from the Buddha that says, thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. So the powerhouse really is the energy of the infinite. You can even flip the 8 on its side and see how it is the infinity symbol. So it's all about abundant resourcing. So in Chinese numerology, they take this literally. It's a very lucky number that says luck, money, karmic patterns, but really physical resourcing. But so money and abundance, but if we pull it back, then it's the journey of empowerment. It's coming into our own power, and also saying that if we are in our power, we can share that infinitely with others and we will not be harmed. So 8 is actually a number that I think needs to be reclaimed from capitalism because it's very easily exploitable. It's super capable. It's very courageous. It's very cunning. There's a strength to 8. But really it's about personal power. So if anybody has active 8s in their chart or is going through an 8-year, something to keep in mind, just because you can do something does not mean that you should do something. And 8 is a number of desire. So really checking in with what you want to do, where that desire, that heat kind of lies for you. And I find that 8s also struggle with confidence or self-esteem or imposter syndrome. And I personally don't think that we ever get rid of imposter syndrome. I think we just get better at holding ourselves through that experience. So if you're in an 8-year, Nike, just do it. You'll learn through action, you'll course correct, you can ask for help, but really empowering yourself to just do it. Which then brings us to the last number of the spiral before our 2 little master numbers that will sneak in. So if 1 is the start and the self, then 9 is the end and the all. So in our 9, we have this archetype of the humanitarian. So it does not surprise me, and I see Allison, that we have 9s in the room, because 9 is really a loving act of service, right? People who want to be of service to the collective, who can have a bigger picture on things, that really want to take care of humanity, whatever that means to you, your family, your community, the world. But it really is completion energy, right? So it's the end, it's wrapping up, it's completing. So I know we have a lot of 9 yearly cycles. So this is a year, if you're in a 9-year, of endings. And I think on the one hand, that can be really great because maybe things are wrapping up, they're coming to completion. Please don't forget to celebrate your wins this year, like whatever is wrapping up. Really celebrate that, whatever is successful to you, right? In the hero's journey, the 9th step is the reward. So whatever rewards are showing up for you, please celebrate those, because also not all endings happen on our terms. Some things might get yanked, some things might end and you're not ready. And again, a ritual action around those endings could be really helpful for anyone going through big 9 energy. It is letting go, right? It's clearing the slate. And if you don't clear the slate this year, you'll be forced to do it next year before you plant seeds. That's just been my experience with the 9, kind of the 9-1 experience. But 9, okay, so we can look to the Hermit to show us that this is the energy of retreat. It's the number of higher learning. So we're going away, we're doing our study, and then we're re-emerging, and we're lending that light, lending that knowledge, lending that help in the form of guidance and support. And it really is about helping humanity with the wisdom that you've gained through your experiences. So for example, you can say, I did this, let me share with you all the mistakes I made so that you don't have to do that. It's like a very high vibe 9. It's just like, let me tell you how it went, and then you can just skip the nitty gritty. Let me tell you. So our 9 in a collective consciousness are pretty lofty. Greta Thunberg is a 9, Malala, Angela Davis. We have really, really epic 9s in there. But yeah, so it's all about being of service and being helpful. Because you've experienced it all. You've gone through the whole cycle, especially 9 years. You can look back what started during your 1 year, what might be wrapping up. You can start to connect those dots. So, okay, we're gonna do this super quickly. I knew this would put me through my paces. So if Emily's still here, which she's not, that's okay. Someone can tell her that she is the archetype of the idealist. So now we're into master numbers, and master numbers aren't used by every numerologist, but I do use a few in my practice. And so now we're outside of the number line. So, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Now we're here, we're outside, we're pulled up, and we have perspective. So 11 is all about imaginative possibilities and perspectives. They're all about romance and beauty and what is like the perfect form of something, because they can sit on top of the proverbial snow globe and look down and see the full picture of it. And they can actually tell us lowly, plebes down here on the ground what they see. And then we can work together to fill in the gap. You can think of 11 as justice, right? In the tarot, we have to be really real with what is so that we can be active to change it. So our idealists might have trouble yielding to reality. It can be hard to live 2 feet on the ground when you have access to the clouds. But I do really think that 11 elevates the journey of the peacemaker, right? Who wants to collaborate and work together. And now we just have a little bit more perspective on it. And most 11s that I come into contact with are psychic, whether they know it or not, whether they use those skills or not, they are. And then I know that we had a 22 in here. So last number in our last 2 minutes, that's perfect. We have 22, the archetype of the master builder. I use, if you build it, he will come. So if you think of elevating the 4, right, the salt of the earth, this is someone who can plan and build it. And you're kind of sitting there wondering how they did that, right? So it's material manifestation. It's like they snap their fingers and the whole thing comes together. It's practicality meets prodigy. It's spiritual mastery, somebody who knows devotion and discipline, but in a way that's very heart-centered. And this magical notion of like something out of nothing. My favorite public figure that is a master builder is Kim Kardashian. Think what you will about her. She built an empire. She did it. How? Who knows? What are we all looking at? I don't know, but she did it and it's real. And then the flip side of that is Charles Manson was a master builder life path. I think that's so interesting how he was able to get a lot of people, the influence that he had, that he was able to actually not get his hands so dirty and have a lot of other people do that for him. And so that is the master number. So we're right on time. I'm happy to stay just a few minutes over if there are questions, because I know I threw a lot at you. So thank goodness you'll get these slides in the recording. And I just want to offer for everyone, thank you so much. This code, Community Care, can be used on my website, which I will throw in the chat as well, for 11% off any one-on-one session. I do have my calendars open for July. I haven't announced it publicly, so have at it. And I also am teaching this summer a series of 4 workshops, 2 in July and 2 in August, that will be on numerology. We'll start with 101, so it'll be a fully fleshed out version of what you have heard today. Plus, we'll go over the magic square and pinnacles, which are timing techniques, as well as numerology in the tarot. So I'll throw my information in the chat. Thoughts on angel numbers? Yes. Okay. So I really think that, again, for me personally, angel numbers, I do love them. I do see them. 444 is my like cheeky hello from my angels. But I think with anything, it just has to mean something to you. So I think magic is everything and nothing. And I have to hold it that way to be able to work with it. So if it works for you, if you gain meaning from seeing those repeating numbers, great. I don't really look to other people's opinions for what repeating numbers mean, because I do believe it's communication, but I think it's something's trying to get your attention. Like some people see angel numbers and they're like, that's a green light. Other people see numbers and they're like, ooh, I got to slow down and pay attention, be present, right? If you're seeing signs around you, that means you are present. You are noticing the world around you. So I would say if you have questions or you want to interact, you can even say like, whoever I'm working with, send me a number or send me a sign and like see how quickly it shows up in your sphere. Or what I like to do too is if I see a number a lot or a sequence of numbers, I'll jot it down and then I'll do one word per number and kind of map like a little sentence or a little mantra out of them. So if I were seeing like 357, I would go creativity, change, questioning. So what about my creative process could I stand to like mix up, and like what quest can I go in around my creative process, or it's something like that. So adding words to it, and kind of making mantras. How does that vibe with you? Yeah. Yeah, but I think with repeating stuff, because it happens kind of all the time, whether you're noticing it or not. I think it just has to mean something to you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Oh, I've been told by some numerologists that I'm a 4, by others that I'm a 22. Yes. Yeah. So like I said, it does have to go with how you're adding your birthday. I think you can decide which one you vibe with the most. I think also something to keep in mind if this is your life path. Yes, I know, right? Yes, 22. Is that if any of this feels lofty, or it feels like, oh, I'm not really sure that's me, this is the long game of your life. And so looking around, I think everyone's in like the first part of their lives. So this is the journey the whole time that you're here. And I think a lot of times I don't feel my life path of 8. And then I realize that, of course I don't, because I'm dealing with self-esteem and confidence and my own power. And so, of course, my little ego brain would tell me I'm not vibing with the 8. That's just my opportunity to pull back and into my own power. What's the other way?
As far as adding numbers.
Yeah. So sometimes if you add like, if you were to add 8 plus 5 plus 1980, and then you would get a bigger number, and then you can add the digits. There's like different ways of adding that will get you a different building block number. So it just has to do with how you add. I like to just add straight through. So separate all the digits and see what I get. I usually get smaller numbers that way. But yeah, I think again, right? Everyone does the math differently. So whatever archetype is like, yeah, that's me. And I think, yes, Master Builder, snap those fingers, make it happen. Yeah, for me, it never changes. I'm nowhere near a master number. So I'll let the other people, I'll let the Joes of the world handle that for us. Okay, I'm going to throw my website in here. Also my Instagram handle. I do have a free Numerology 101 zine that is just more information. It's tonight plus. It's what you would expect in a full 2-hour workshop with me as well. It's on my site. So it's free to download. You just put your little email in. I also have a tarot cheat sheet if anyone is interested in tarot. And then, like I said, so once you get that zine, you will be added to my email list. At least stick around until Friday. I'm going to announce July and Numerology Summer School and all of those offerings. And then after that, no hard feelings if you want to subscribe or unsubscribe, excuse me. I will know, but I won't hold any feelings against you for it. Everyone's inboxes are so cluttered. But this is how to get in touch with me. And I really do feel like, even though tonight we didn't have a lot of time to chat, we've opened a 2-way conversation. So if you're vibing with any of this, please let me know. Don't feel free to send me your questions via email, or you can connect with me through my site. And yeah, I hope everyone is feeling like a little bit more of a number nerd after all of this.
Thank you so much. This was so great. So much. Oh my God, that was jam-packed. Damn.
I can't help myself. So thank you for listening to all of my words, and thank goodness for replays and slideshows.
Yeah. Thank you. This was amazing. And as Diana always says, feel free to share what you learned, your takeaways, your numbers, share it with your community, on your Instagram stories. Tag Rebecca and just spread this magic. And I'm sure there are so many different ways to use these numbers too. Like we were talking about in our Instagram live, like wedding dates and birthday, like all sorts of things. And, the day that your business was born, I don't know, there's probably all these things have their own numbers, I'm sure. So there's lots of room to play here and get creative. So I'm curious the takeaways that you guys have, and feel free to feel free to share them and tag Rebecca and spread the
Yes.
topic. But
Yeah, they totally do. And I have so I have some sessions kind of mapped out on my site, but I have this thing called a seeker session where we really just throw like the esoteric book at it. I think and there's always, even if you book like a significant 6, which is my signature chart reading, you can still let me know in the comments like what you want to look at. I have a lot of people who are like, can we look at me and my business, like the top 3 of myself and my business, and see how, like what energy my business has, how I can best work with it. I've gotten some really cool soup from that experience. So there's, yes, chart your names, your birthdays, your addresses, your friends, your family, run wild.
well, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you. And I hope that you learned something fun that you can now apply. That's what it's all about, having more and more tools in your toolkit. So you now have one extra tool to grab from. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have more events coming up always. And thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming in and sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was so nice to meet everyone.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.